The night I joked, "Do you want to move in with me?" I had no idea that by sunrise my entire life would be standing at my front door with a suitcase and red, swollen eyes. It was raining in Portland, Oregon, the kind of steady rain that doesn't storm or shout, but soaks through everything quietly. I remember because the streetlights blurred into golden halos and the air smelled like wet pavement and pine. That was the night everything shifted. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the kind of love that shows up when everything else falls apart, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter, and sometimes they change more than just the characters inside them. Her name was Rachel Monroe. We had known each other for almost 3 years, ever since she started working at the bookstore 2 blocks from my apartment. I'm Nathan Cole, a freelance graphic designer who spends too much time indoors and not enough time saying what I truly feel. Rachel was sunlight in human form, always laughing, always remembering your favorite author, always tucking her chestnut hair behind her ear when she was nervous. But that night, she wasn't laughing. We had closed the bookstore together after a late inventory check. The rain had already begun, tapping softly against the windows while we counted receipts and restocked the shelves. Rachel seemed distracted, dropping paperbacks, staring at nothing. I asked if she was okay, and she forced a smile so fragile it almost broke in front of me. Her boyfriend, Travis, had asked her to leave. Not in a dramatic shouting match, not in a blaze of betrayal, just a cold, calculated conversation over dinner. He had outgrown the relationship, he'd said. Outgrown her. She told me all of this while we stood under the bookstore's awning, rain falling like a curtain around us. I tried to make her laugh. I tried to lighten the heaviness pressing down on her shoulders. And somewhere between awkward comfort and my own racing heart, I joked, "Well, do you want to move in with me?" It was supposed to be humor. A ridiculous, impossible suggestion thrown into the rain to make her smile. And she did smile, for a second. Then she said she'd figure something out and drove away in her aging Honda, windshield wipers fighting the storm. The next morning I woke to a knock on my door. It wasn't loud, it wasn't urgent, but it carried weight. When I opened it, Rachel stood there with a single suitcase, mascara faintly smudged under her eyes. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still heavy and gray. She looked smaller somehow, like the world had shrunk her overnight. She swallowed hard and asked if my offer was still good. In that moment, every joke dissolved, every playful tone vanished. All that remained was the raw truth that she had nowhere else to go. I stepped aside. The first few days were strange. My apartment wasn't built for 2 people. It was a modest 1-bedroom with creaky floors and a kitchen barely large enough for 1 cook. Rachel took the couch without complaint. She folded her clothes neatly into a corner of my closet, as if trying not to take up space in a life she wasn't sure she belonged in. At night, I could hear her crying softly. I pretended not to. The challenge wasn't just space, it was fear. I had cared about Rachel for years, quietly, safely. Watching her date someone else had been painful enough. Now she was 5 feet away every evening, vulnerable and broken. I didn't want to be a rebound. I didn't want to be the guy she leaned on only until she could stand on her own again. And yet, every morning I made her coffee the way she liked it. 1 sugar, splash of oat milk. Every evening we cooked dinner together, bumping elbows in the tiny kitchen, laughing at burnt garlic and overcooked pasta. Slowly, the apartment began to feel less cramped and more alive. Still, doubt lingered. Rachel struggled with guilt. She applied for apartments she couldn't afford. She scrolled through listings late at night, biting her lip. She kept saying she didn't want to be a burden. The word burden hung between us like a wall. One afternoon, about 2 weeks in, I came home to find her sitting on the floor surrounded by job applications. The bookstore had cut her hours. Travis had taken the car they shared. Her savings were almost gone. For the first time, I saw not just sadness, but defeat. And something inside me snapped. I sat down across from her on the floor and told her she wasn't a burden. I told her she was brave for leaving a place she wasn't wanted. I told her this apartment wasn't charity, it was partnership. I admitted that my joke hadn't been entirely a joke. She stared at me, eyes searching. That was the night we stopped pretending. Not with dramatic confessions or cinematic kisses, but with honesty. We spoke about fear, about timing, about how fragile hearts can be after they've been handled carelessly. We agreed to move slowly to protect what was forming between us. The weeks that followed were not magically easy. We argued about dishes, about noise when I had deadlines, about her habit of apologizing for existing. But something steady grew beneath the surface. Trust. Rachel found a new job at a small marketing agency downtown. I helped redesign her resume. She helped me land a major client by brainstorming ideas at midnight over cheap takeout. We became a team without even realizing it. Then came the real test. 3 months after she moved in, Travis showed up at the bookstore asking about her. He wanted to talk. Closure, he claimed. Rachel came home shaken. Old wounds don't disappear just because time passes. I watched her wrestle with the temptation of familiarity. Even painful familiarity can feel safer than new love. That night she sat beside me on the couch, no longer sleeping there but sitting by choice, and told me she was scared. Not of Travis, of us, of how real it felt. I didn't offer grand promises. I didn't pressure her. I simply told her that love isn't about outgrowing someone. It's about growing together. The next day she blocked his number, not out of anger, but out of clarity. A year later, the rain returned to Portland, the same soft, steady rhythm against the windows. Our apartment had changed. The couch had been replaced by a small dining table. Her clothes filled half the closet without apology. The walls held framed photographs of weekend road trips and blurry selfies. On that rainy evening, I stood by the window remembering the joke that started it all. Rachel came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist, and rested her head against my back. She asked if I ever regretted opening that door. I told her the truth. Opening that door was the bravest thing I've ever done. Love didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived with a suitcase and tear-streaked cheeks. It grew in cramped kitchens and late-night fears. It survived doubt, financial stress, and the ghosts of old relationships. And it stayed. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if you've ever taken a risk on someone or been given a second chance you didn't think you deserved, please like this video, share it with someone who needs courage today, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what love can really look like. And before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Comment the word door below if you believe that sometimes the smallest decisions open the biggest blessings in life. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say yes to a joke that turns into a promise. Rachel still teases me about that night. She says I manifested her moving in. I say she saved me from a life that was too quiet. The truth is, we saved each other. And every time it rains in Portland, I remember the knock on my door. Soft, uncertain, but full of possibility, and I thank God I answered it.